up the mic.
Good to see you, Nick, and it's good to be seen in these turbulent times. It's good to be seen alive.
Exactly. You know, I want to turn on everybody who's watching to you and your music. And I think the best thing that I can do is obviously let you talk about it. But maybe just a little background on when I did first meet you. I think it was at the end of 2015, and you had just returned to music. I mean,
Yes.
you've been away for a while. And before we talk about the fantastic Negrito incarnation, maybe we could talk a little bit more about your background in music before, when you first got into music.
At first, exactly. Well, it all started out in Oakland, California, and I was a young man growing up in some pretty challenging neighborhoods, and I had a dream that I want to be a star, because the neighborhood I lived in was mostly drug dealers, and I wanted to play music. I wanted different means of expression. I didn't know how to play music, so what I would do is I would sneak into the University of California, Berkeley, and pretend I was a student. And I would get into these practice rooms, and I'd just sit there and kind of listen, and people were playing scales. I didn't know what scales were, but I started playing those scales too. And that was the beginning of my musical education. It was a big hustle. So then I moved to LA. I had the big dream. I want to be a star. Now I can play. I'm talented. And I got signed first by Prince's manager, and then I got signed to Interscope Records, a guy named Jimmy Iovine, who's quite known now, and it's this huge record deal, these huge expectations that went absolutely nowhere. So that was the beginning, in a short, brief statement.
You know, when you talk about coming to LA and coming for the dream, what year was that, first of all, if you don't mind me asking?
Man, I'm an old dude, so let's go back. That was like 1990. I came in 1990, hustling, sleeping on the streets, taking a shower at Venice Beach. 2 years into my landing there, I ran into Prince's manager. They told me I was a genius. I believed it. I bought it. And they was like, we're going to get your deal. By 94, I had a deal with Interscope Records. It's like, at that time, the biggest record deal ever in the history of music. All the hype so that I could fail, basically.
Well, that was a massive label back then. I mean, still is, I guess. But back then, they were renowned for putting out a lot of music artists that were challenging. From 9 Inch Nails to Dr. Dre.
Exactly.
And Jimmy Iovine, who is the guy behind Interscope Records, obviously, then went on to, with Dre, of course, found Beats, and now he's in Apple Music, all that stuff. When you got that deal, did you really think, well, that's it, here we go, let's go?
Absolutely. And I was a young kid, I was young and beautiful, and I could play. So yeah, I thought this is it. I'm in LA, and it's like the land of make believe. So I went right. I thought it was amazing.
So what kind of music were you making back then?
What I make now, no, I don't know. It's just, I was making what I wanted to make, and that was always what I was driven by. And it was like more R&B driven, but it still wasn't R&B, because R&B people looked at me and said, no, we don't get it. So I was always living in some other universe. And, he took a chance on me. That changed my life, having that kind of a financial backing.
But when you were sort of right at that moment where you thought everything was going to happen for you, something happened that you could never have seen. Obviously,
right?
You had a terrible accident. Yeah.
Well, what happened is, so from '94, I'm just stuck on Interscope. I put out one album, and I'm like the kind of, you've heard this cliche, I'm sitting on the shelf, and I'm just toiling in obscurity. And strangely enough, one of the most near tragic, horrific things brought me out of that circumstance, which was a near fatal accident, which left me in a coma 3 weeks and took away my playing hand. And this is what's left of my playing hand. I call it the claw. It's the claw. The claw, But I had to learn how to play again, because I can't really move it. And so it was actually tragic. And you're waking up, and one night I'm partying in the Hollywood Hills at a party with beautiful women and all kinds of drugs that I was not using.
Officer.
Yeah, no, I was not using X. And then the next moment I wake up and a nurse says to me in an accent, which later I learned was Filipino, she's like, "You've been in a very terrible accident." So I was like, wow, this is a foreign accent. I'm laying here and I can't move. And I'd been intubated for 3 weeks, you know? And I thought I was like America, we'd gone to war, and, you know, it's kind of pretty xenophobic of me, actually. MAGA would love this right now. You know, I thought I thought there must be a war. What happened here? And so it was really traumatic, and it took me a few days to kind of accept and realize that the predicament that I was in. But, you know, I was always an optimist. I mean, I remember just laying there in the bed, like kind of moving my toes, like, okay, now we're rehabbing right now. Move your fingers, move your toes. So, but it was both tragic, traumatic, but also a great gift.
So what year was that, the accident?
That was in '99. So yeah.
Okay, so
5 years.
So you went away for a while.
Yeah, man. It was. I went away for a while, and in between, like '99, I got into like the LA underground, which is very underrated and so cool. I don't feel like the underground in LA gets enough credit, but I spent about 7 years just hanging in the LA underground and opening up illegal nightclubs and really having a good time. Like having my birthday every day was kind of amazing. There's such a amazing subculture. He smiles because he knows what I mean.
So
there's this like really rich, amazing subculture in LA that doesn't get enough credit. And I was like in the rock and Espanol and Afro punk like this. It's just so amazing. And then I stopped. I decided, well, I just quit music. And I come back to Oakland. I decided to become a marijuana farmer because, boy, that was good business back then. And that was 2007. So I was a farmer for 5 years. So I went away again for 5 years and I sold all my equipment. I thought, man, I'd never play music again. That was something I used to do, and opened up an art gallery and started a collective with some interesting people.
So when did Fantastic Negrito, when was Fantastic Negrito born?
Okay, so Fantastic Negrito was born around 2014. That's when I started coming up with the concept of coming back. And by then I started a family. I was living on a farm, successful marijuana cultivator, and then I had a little baby boy. And that changed everything for me because I remember one day not being able to soothe him and get him to calm down and try to take a nap. And I just happened to find a guitar underneath a couch in my house that I hadn't sold, because I sold all of my equipment, and it was a magical day because that day, the minute I played that G major, that kid's face lit up the world. I got chills down my spine. I got choked up. I got scared. All these emotions came, and I thought, wow, I haven't been playing music in 5 years, and here it is that music is the language of humanity. This kid is reacting to these strings, resonating with this wood at this time. And that began a slow walk back to being about 2014, which is Fantastic Negrito, or late 2013 even.
So when I met you, I think it was towards the end of 2015, and
right.
You had just won the NPR Tiny Desk concert competition.
Yes.
that they had run. National Public Radio, for anybody who's watching this outside of the United States. And that was a big deal, and that really sort of kicked this Fantastic Negrito incarnation into gear, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you talk about, it was about 2014, I'll say 2013 to be fair. I come up with the concept, I'm playing the stuff, and people, a lot of, we're like, I don't really get it. Like, you want to do like kind of this blues-based music, but it's not really blues. I'm like, well, I feel this. Well, it's not soul. Well, it's not rock. Well, it's not R&B, and it's too funky to be blues, but it's too blues to be rock. I heard all this stuff, and then the last thing I heard was like, you're like 40 something now, man. Nobody cares, man. There's so many people who told me that I was wasting my time, wasting my hard-earned marijuana profits on pushing this idea of being Fantastic Negrito. Nobody wanted to hear it. So what did I do? I went to the people. I went to the people, man. I just set up at train stations, coffee shops, donut shops, anywhere there was people, man. I started playing my message of Fantastic Negrito, what I called Black roots music, which was picking from that amazing garden of the history that we have and the legacy that we have in this country of what I like to call Black roots music. And it was 2015 came, and someone was like, hey, man, you want to enter the NPR Tiny Desk contest? And I was like, what's that? I honestly had never heard of it. I think I may have told people before, yeah, I know what the Tiny Desk was, but I really hadn't heard of it. And so I thought, well, NPR, I talked with some people. And there were, I listened to more negative people, which I learned, got to stop doing that. Mm-hmm. Because you wake up in the morning and there's an army of negative people waiting to stop you on the way to your dreams. They're like, well, you're talking about selling drugs. You got a song called the Nigga Song. You got NPR you're talking about you paid the Chinese girl. You've got all these songs, man. The NPR is too straight. Like, they're not going to embrace something like this. So I thought, yeah, they're probably right. These kind of these ultra liberal people, maybe, yeah. So then I was prejudiced against NPR, but I was in a collective, and they voted that I had to do it because it was a collective. And so I went down there. I just did one take of the song called "Lost in the Crowd." One take, that's done. That's your video. And I thought, man, I never thought of it again. And then it came back, and I won. I beat 7,000 hipsters.
It's pretty good.
It was pretty strange. It was unbelievable. So yeah, it really changed my life. The NPR Tiny Desk changed my life. Bob Boilen, I mean, what he's done for music in the last 5 years, it's just unprecedented in my view, and such a breath of just refreshing air, man, in this climate of like just sameness and this kind of monotonous, like droning thing that happens sometimes in the music business. And like with Fantastic Negrito, Tank and the Bangers, just to name a few, I think we've really shown the world that, man, you got to listen to everyone.
I think when I met you, it was a little after that, and I had a web series called Nick Harcourt's Transmissions, which was shot here in LA, and you came and played it, and I met you for the first time there.
Right.
And I would encourage anybody to go look for that session, or any of your sessions, obviously. But I remember you sitting down at a candy apple red baby grand piano.
I remember that.
And playing some songs, and you were really nervous about it. I don't really know if I want to do these on piano. And you played something, and I was just like, I mean, everybody around just had their jaw on the floor. And that was when I became a fan. And at the end of the day, for me, I mean, I do this for a living, but it's really because I'm a fan of the music and the musicians.
Right.
And out of that, not my thing, but out of the attention that you were getting at the time, came the opportunity to make the first record under the name Fantastic Negrito.
That's true.
When you went in to record that album, what did you set out to do? What was the message?
Well, I think in 2015, I'm trying to remember, first I did, the first thing was the deluxe EP, because I had the songs An Honest Man and Lost in the Crowd. So first I was like, wow, I didn't even have an album concept yet. So first I just put out this deluxe EP, Fantastic Negrito Super Deluxe EP. And I was just trying to really just get the music, produced, as a producer, because I'm self-produced. So I was just trying to get the music produced and keep that sense of urgency that I had busking, because I wrote this music busking. I wrote this music amongst my peers. I wrote this music in Texas, busking in New York, busking in San Francisco at train stations. for people who probably didn't really set out to hear music. So that was really challenging. So my thing was just connect with people. Skip all the other stuff, connect with people. And I wanted to keep that rawness when I produced that first EP. So a lot of it was like stomps, chants, chains, emotion. And so that I hadn't really even done the album yet. The album came in 2016. What happened with the EP is I put it out, and then I was going to have to do a tour, and I was finding it hard to get over to Europe, and that's when Chris Cornell, may rest in peace, got wind of my record, my EP, and asked me to tour with him. And boy, that was life-changing.
That was a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, just getting out into then Europe and Australia and playing music. We did 3 tours, actually. It was pretty amazing. So that was great. That first EP, like, just kind of opened things up for me. And people got to feel the sense of urgency, the rawness, the realness, kind of the street performing Fantastic Negrito.
So the album was The Last Days of Oakland. And
the album was The Last Days of Oakland.
Right. And it went on to win a Grammy. I mean,
it did. Shocking. I'm shocked again.
Right.
I'm like, what? I didn't believe it. I was like, really?
Best Contemporary Blues Album, right?
Yeah. Best Contemporary Blues Album.
And I know that Grammys don't pay the rent necessarily, or feed the family, but the attention has got to be something that number one is rewarding, and secondly gives you the opportunity to play to even more people. Absolutely.
And I have to say, like, making The Last Days of Oakland, that was going to be the first album under Fantastic Negrito. So I took on, I mean, my music always, I'm not a preachy guy, although I can be.
A little bit.
But it's always social commentary. It's always social commentary. That's where I am as a middle-aged guy. When I'm writing my albums, people may be shocked to know this, but I'm really talking to my kids and your kids and my neighbor's kids. I have this thing about, I'm talking to children because I had so many pitfalls growing up. So when I was making The Last Days of Oakland, first it was people were like, what, The Last Days of Oakland? What do you mean? Hipsters were outraged, like, what are you talking about, The Last Days of Oakland? But I mean, I wanted to write what was going on around me. I like with my albums to just kind of get my finger, put it on the pulse and just feel it and feel the vibration. So when I was writing that album, I was in Oakland touring. I was in New Orleans. I was in DC, and I was noticing that all these cities had changed. Like people that were born in San Francisco, their hometown, guess what? You may not be able to live in San Francisco anymore just because of the disparity between wages and renting. I thought New Orleans, the same thing, man. These places had changed. And I remember I was sitting in a cafe in New Orleans when I wrote down The Last Days of Oakland. Boom, that's my concept. And so I started crafting songs around the ideas of like, racial justice, social justice, gentrification, all these issues that were just extremely interesting to me. I was thinking of something this morning. I wrote on that album a song called What Do You Do? And it was all about, it was kind of a interstitial. It was wasn't a full song, but it was, I went out in the street and I asked people, what do you do if the police stop you? To about 20 or 30 different people. And what do you do if the police stop you and they're violating you and they're wrong? What do you do? What are the tools that you have? And I was just speaking to especially young African-American men, because I think we are lacking some tools when the police stop us. And so I made that, and I thought about it today. Like, I thought, this stuff isn't new to my community. I mean, it's stuff I've been writing about since I first made an album. So it's interesting how, sometimes people catch up with what you're talking about.
Well, ironically, here we are talking today, a couple of years later, and
Right.
Things have changed significantly, or perhaps are in the process of changing significantly. And I want to jump into that in a minute, but very quickly talk about the album that came after that, which was called "Please Don't Be Dead." And actually, the photograph on the front of it is you in the hospital bed back in 1999 or whatever it was that you were talking about.
Right. Back in '99.
What did you learn from Last Days of Oakland and touring the world that you then brought into that album, which by the way, excuse me, mixing my words up. Actually, I know, right? I'm getting old, and
what were you doing? What were you doing this morning? Now?
The words don't come out properly anymore.
Right.
You know what they say about getting older is like, if you can't find your keys, it's okay. It's when you find them and look at them and say, what are these for? That's when you've got a problem.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, what did you learn in the process of touring the world and taking that first album to audiences that you then brought into the second album? And then I want to scoot forward to the new one. But if you could just give us a quick idea on that.
What I learned touring the world was when you're in France and you see a shirt like this, get it. That's what I learned from That's what I learned from touring the world, man. Fashion. Yeah. Well, I added sleeves to it. I'm into like upcycling. So
yeah,
the shirt, cut off the sleeves, and get local people to add really cool stuff to it. So it's interesting. Like what I learned is, hey, you're in a very different lane. You're in a really special place as an artist. You're not a rapper, check that box. You're not a pop singer, check that box. So you got tons of freedom. And I learned to go in the studio and just act like you're 17 and not have a care. Be completely free with how you create and how you write and how you produce your music. And ain't nobody paying me to say nothing, you know what I mean? And was also something beautiful because the first album, making it all the way to win a Grammy, man, I did it with no label. And that was extremely, extremely powerful. And I'm proud of it. I always say the people are my record company, man. That's who I got to answer to. So when I was making Please Don't Be Dead, I thought, be bolder, be louder, be even more combative, because again, with the finger on the pulse, wow, that's when MAGA had happened, and it was all this these kind of subtle, like cold xenophobia, and this kind of propagandist agenda had really taken place. And so I was like, America, please don't be dead. I was like, that was kind of a plea, like, hey, man, when I'm out in the world, people are looking at us. It's like, we're supposed to be the shining light on the hill. We're supposed to be the country of hope. We're supposed to be the country of chances. We're supposed to be the country of endless possibilities. And what I was finding was that we suddenly weren't saying that. And we're suddenly sounding like a nation that was falling in love with nationalism, xenophobia, racism, not a country that wanted to align ourselves along the lines of our differences, which are vast and wonderful and diverse, and that's what makes a great team. We were now saying, hey, the things that divide us, that's what's going to separate us. So I think I got really inspired in the world when people would come up to me and literally say, what is going on in America? And those accents, tell me what is happening. People were really freaked out. And so I just said, hey, the power of the pen, the power of the instrument, let's go write another album. And I was like, I'm sure people who love Please Don't Be Dead will hate it. I'm sure the engineer I was working with called me up and said, hey, man, what kind of record are you making here, man? Because, you just won a Grammy for contemporary blues. This sounds like a rock record to me, man. I don't know, maybe you should hire a producer. And when I got that call, I thought, yes,
I'm on the right track.
That's who I want to be. I'm not. And I was like, good. The Grammy thing happened, and bye. Nice to meet you guys. I got one Grammy. I can say I got a Grammy. Peace. And that album ends up winning a Grammy.
I was going to say, go figure, because you won another Grammy for Best Contemporary Blues Album, and
Which, shocking. Again, the Grammys have shocked me twice.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, really?
So I know you toured on that one as well, and I follow you on social media, so I see all your pictures, and I'll tell you what's interesting as well is I've never known anybody who I've done interviews with or worked with professionally, other than you, where I have friends in different parts of the world who say, "Hey, that guy, he's coming to my town. Can you figure out how I can meet him?" I mean, I've sent people to you in London, in Amsterdam.
Right.
It's the weirdest thing. So let's. Ooh, motorcycle. No.
You should have saw what the guy was doing. He's like standing on the seat with the wheel up. I'm not joking. That was nuts.
Entertainment.
Hey, this is West Oakland, man. It's a good place to write music.
So let's bring it up to date with the new album that's coming in August, I think, right?
Yes.
And let's talk about the moment catching up with you, as you just sort of alluded to. We're talking in June of 2020. And in the last couple of weeks in the United States in particular, obviously, and around the world by extension, there seems to have been a shift. There seems to have been an acknowledgement that things are just not right. In the US, obviously, for Black people, for people of color, for minorities.
Right.
How does the work that you've been doing on the new album tie into this moment?
Well, it's interesting. I want to just add to that they're not right for white people either. They're not right for any of us, because ultimately, like, we're a family here, I hope. And, the whole idea of white supremacy doesn't work for white people either. They don't get anything from it. If they got something amazing, I'd be like, wow, may not work for me, but I see how it works for you. So I wanted to include our white brothers and sisters. That's because I don't distinction. Yeah, I don't want this to. The thing is, being an older guy, is like, I see this thing happening, and it's like, we can't become a society of extremes. It's like, we're way over here, now let's go way over here. We gotta get right there in that middle ground, so that we can include everyone, and we can all heal, and we can all become very self-aware and self-conscious, and we can listen to each other, and we can have conversations, not accusations, not witch hunts. Because if we do that, this whole thing's gonna backfire on us. So I just want to throw that in there.
I'm glad.
Okay, all right. So what was the question? The new album. So here I am. I put out 2 albums. I won 2 Grammys. Man, I'm hot. I'm telling my wife, my family, I'm like, hey, people are like, you want a Grammy? I'm like, no. I won 2 Grammys. Like, Grammy winner. So it's good. I mean, it's great. I mean, I know ultimately that that's not my world at all, and this dream will end. And, I always love people like, David Bowie, who they didn't give a Grammy to until he passed. And David Byrne, and the beginning of hip hop, the beginning of punk music, and I love Fela Kuti. I mean, I'm all over the place. Black Sabbath. So I don't know if all my heroes really got Grammys. And the thing that I'm interested in, what makes me love music, doesn't have much to do with the Grammys, with all due respect. And I do like my Grammys. And I don't keep them in my house, though. And I don't put them on mantles. I feel like that's an end game. I remember putting the Grammy up on the mantle, the first Grammy. And I noticed that every time I'd come inside, I'd be like, kind of like drawn to that Grammy. And I'd go play something on the piano, and I literally was thinking, wow, are these Grammy chords. And I'd look at that, and I was like, you know what, that Grammy's got to go. So I got rid of it, and I'm so much happier. I'll be glad to win more and just put them in a box.
Sure.
So so let me just say that. So I got to the third album, and I just had to be honest. Like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? I wanted to kind of expand. Like, what am I thinking? I want to include more people, and I wanted to write about people that I knew this time. The Last Days Oakland, I wrote about these broad topics, man: gentrification, social justice, disparity in wage earnings, and it's this big, raging against this monster. The second album was like, take on the proliferation of guns and the proliferation of pharmaceutical drugs and corporate slavery. Rage against them, you big devil, big concepts. But this album, Have You Lost Your Mind Yet? I wanted to write secretly about people that were around me. And I wasn't going to tell them I was writing about them, and it had to do with mental health. Not the obvious mental health that I'm looking at right now in West Oakland, where someone's talking to themselves. That's easy. You're like, oh yeah, they're talking to themselves, they're messed up, we feel bad. But I mean the mental health of this machine that's grinding us every single day. This mass corporate media that's telling us what slogans to say, lots of slogans, what banners to wave, what opinions to have, and how we should think, and how we should feel. A lot of times on social media, I mean, you listen to them, you're like, wow, that's exactly what Fox News said. That's not your independent thought. Wow, that's exactly CNBC that you're saying. And it's like, I feel like with this so much stuff coming at us every day, I thought, wow, how's that affecting our mental health? How is that affecting our anxiety levels? How's that affecting how we feel towards each other as human beings? Are we even looking at each other? Or are we screaming at each other? And what does that do to us as people? What does that do to watch? Man, I'm still tripping off Sandy Hook. I'm still tripping off Sandy Hook. Those were little kids. So what have we become? Like, who have we become that we just accept this now? Like, drinking some water. Oh yeah, 25 people were killed over there. Cool, all right. Hey, let me check my Instagram followers. It's like, it just become so casual. And I'm like, what has that done to us? Like, who are we? Like, as human beings, when are we going to start tapping into what humanity is? Or are we unable to because of all these gadgets and all these cool gadgets? And we're like this. We're like this. We're walking down the street and we're like this. And we're like this and we're like this. And there's all these information and you can find out the capital of Uzbekistan in 5 seconds. But can you tell me anything about Uzbekistan? Can you talk to me about the people, the culture, the food? So I just felt like, have you lost your mind yet?
That's
have
the album
we lost our mind yet? And with all this technology, which is amazing. If there wasn't any technology, there wouldn't be Fantastic Negrito. It wouldn't exist because I had to use it in a very good, positive way to get my message across because, frankly, I didn't think that people wanted to hear it. But I found out through technology that, yeah, people did want to hear it. And it can be a great tool. But it can also be a great evil. And it can also be a great deliverer of misinformation, of stereotype, of danger. It can, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if we have to kind of get back in touch with being a human being. So I was looking at each one of my friends and what I thought about their state of mind, their mental health, and how the society that we lived in with all of its challenges, how did it and how is it affecting them? And was the hardest record that I ever made, because suddenly there was this human, personal aspect of how I was writing and crafting each individual song, and how it related to my friends and managers and associates. So it was very interesting, man, to delve into that. You know, songs like Chocolate Samurai, which were right on time because we were in a quarantine. And the opening lyric is, "Have you lost your mind yet? Get free tonight." You know, it's a very Stevie Wonder influenced track. And yeah, that was interesting to make, to come out with that when we're right in the middle of it, Chocolate Samurai.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but I've heard a couple of the songs off the album. They asked me, you know, say, "Hey, what do you think of these?" And I was like, "Well, fantastic, obviously."
Right.
But before I let you go, I got two last questions. Well, first of all, we're looking forward to hearing the new album. And then secondly, when do you think you might be able to get out and play it? Because right now, you're not going to be touring the world anytime soon, I don't think.
Well, for me, I mean, I'm like, it's just like, hey, everything that we thought in this pre-COVID-19 world, yeah, throw that out. Now we're in post-COVID-19 world, and you got to get out and play it differently. I mean, I get out and play it in the space that I am. The first video that I made, Chocolate Samurai, of course, I outsourced to everybody in the entire world, man. I had videos coming in from, I think it's called crowdsource. I'm getting mixed up with my terms. But yeah, like England, France, Germany, Spain, South Africa, Korea, Japan, New Zealand, people sending their videos. And I was able to work by compiling all this footage and getting everybody in the world involved in an amazing crowdsourced video called Chocolate Samurai. So I feel like, hey, I'm getting out and I'm playing. Hey, I'm connecting with the global audience and getting them involved in this amazing video for this song. And another way of doing it is, you know, setting right up here, amazing little space. It's really a storefront. This used to be a really horrible liquor store when I was a kid. And so you set up here, break out the iPhones. We just did, you know, we did Steve Colbert. Why? Because we were able to shoot here with iPhones. So yeah, we're getting out and playing in a very different way, but it's still getting out and playing, working with what we got, as Grandma used to say.
So let me wrap this up by asking you one last question, and it kind of ties into the first time that I met you, the first interview that I did with you. It was like a pop quiz. We had 21 questions. I don't know if you remember or not, but
I do remember.
But right at the end, my last question to you was, you know, after talking for the last half an hour, what's your state of mind? And you said to me at the time, you know, Nick, I'm fucked up, but I know it, and I'm working on it.
That sounds like me.
So 5 years later, what's your current state of mind?
I'm fucked up. I know it. And I've been working on it, and I want to tell you something, man. I've made so much progress. And why did I make that progress? Sure, I've done 3 social commentary albums, but I made the progress because I realized that, Nick, I can't do it alone. I realized that I needed people. So one thing I've learned in this whole journey of being Fantastic Negrito is that, man, I need people, and I need to hear people. I need people to hear me. It does, even if we disagree with each other. I really need that to happen. And I think as turbulent, as polarized as we are right now, the most important thing that we can do is listen to each other and make that realization that we need each other, that we're only in a united coalition of what I call the tribe with love in their hearts. I love that. That's my tribe. That's the side that I'm on. The tribe with love in their hearts. And we need to, you know, get united and fight valiantly against, you know, the opposition, which is the forces of divisiveness, and evil. So that's where I am now. I feel like the work that I've done, it's made a great impact on myself and the people around me. It's because I realized that I needed them, and I'm very happy.
It's great talking to you, man. Can you just stick around?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's fantastic, Negrito.